Focus. I'm here with Susan Cummins Miller, author from Tucson, Arizona. And Susan, I'm kind of going to leave it up to you what you want to talk about. Your novels, the settings.
Well, you asked me, Doug, you asked me about where my novels were set. And I write the Frankie MacFarlane Mysteries, published by Texas Tech University Press. The series features a geologist. I am a geologist, so it's write what you know. I like to put Frankie MacFarlane in different geologic settings so that the reader has something new to read about, so that they can learn a little something with every book. The first novel, and this was what I was going to tell you earlier when we met. The first novel is set in northeastern Nevada. It's a tiny little hamlet called Paradise, spelled, because it's Nevada, Pair-A-D-I-C-E, pair of dice. And Frankie is there in this little tiny town finishing up her dissertation research for geology. She's getting her PhD. There's a mystery. There is a concurrent mystery. Someone's leaving dead bodies along Interstate 80. And then there is an ancient mystery. She discovers remains of a murder that took place during the pioneer route through the area. So those come together in the novel. And Frankie's an outsider. She has no close friends there. She's a geologist working in the area. And the story is about how she becomes embroiled in these two different murders and what she does about it. In the second book, I take Frankie back to her hometown, which is Tucson. I'm from Tucson, Arizona, and I wanted to use Tucson as the setting in a book. And a series, actually. Beginning in book 2, we bring Frankie back to Tucson. She's been away for 12 years at school and working in California. She's come home to her family, her large family, pioneer stock, for Christmas, and family celebrations such as weddings. But other than that, she hasn't been home. So, in a sense, the theme is, you can't go home again. I wanted to bring out all the changes that have hit Tucson as it has expanded rapidly in population over the last 20 years particularly. And I also wanted to highlight an issue that was quite different than the first book. This is the second book, Detachment Fault, deals with cross-border money laundering and the antiquities trade. So in all my books, I bring in some aspect of history as a thread. I bring in some aspect of geology or mineralogy or paleontology, and I have an archaeological or anthropological thread, a prehistorical thread that I introduced. In the second book, it's trade in Olmec blue jade. The Olmec was really the mother civilization of Mesoamerica. In the third book, I take Frankie to California. There are two storylines. Frankie is now defending her dissertation at a fictional campus of the University of California called UC Del Rio. And the second plot line has to do with the disappearance of a student from a paleontological dig in the middle of the Mojave. And the book is called Quarry for that reason. All my books have geological names, and they all have double meanings. So in Quarry, there is a vertebrate fossil quarry featured at the beginning of the book, and then later on, Frankie MacFarlane, who helps in the search for this student, becomes the quarry. The fourth book, I take readers back to Arizona because I want to highlight different areas, places they might not have visited, subcultures of America that they might not have visited, not only the geology. And this fourth book, Hoodoo, is set in the Chiricahua Mountains. It begins at Chiricahua National Monument. Now, this is the homeland of Cochise. It is adjacent to where Geronimo was captured. This was their stomping ground. And it is now, because of the high price of copper, copper exploration is going on in southern Arizona. And I wanted to highlight that aspect of geology, the conflict between exploration for minerals, which we need, and the resistance to that from people who own land and may not realize that they don't own the mineral rights to those lands, to people who retire to Arizona and have this idea that they have, pristine water supplies and a wilderness. Well, does the possibility of a copper mine, this is going on right now in southern Arizona, does the possibility of a new copper mine, how will it influence their lives, their water supply? So all of those things generate the conflict in Hoodoo. In the fifth book, Fracture, my most recent, the fracture actually refers to the San Andreas Fault system, or the fractures in the Bay Area in California, throughout California. And the story begins in Tucson, and it's giving the backstory really of Frankie MacFarlane's love interest, Philo Dane, who has just returned from Afghanistan at the end of the previous book. And so this is a Frankie MacFarlane and Philo Dane joint mystery. There's a murder in Tucson of a family member of Philo's, and the search for who did it takes them to the Bay Area of California, where Frankie MacFarlane worked, went to school at Stanford, and taught for a while at a college of San Mateo, which is where I also taught for a while. So I get to take the reader to places that I worked and took my students on their geological field trips and their oceanographic field trips. So this is, I'm working now on the sixth novel. I'm about halfway through it, and it takes place in the Grand Canyon of Arizona, because that was I placed right in the middle of this, all the other work that I've done, and I've long wanted to write a book about the Plateau Country, and particularly the Grand Canyon. So I won't tell you any more about that because I'm in the process of writing it. Those are the locations of all of my books, and I didn't give you the title of the first one. It's Death Assemblage. A little difficult to say, but a death assemblage is a group of organisms brought together after death, which describes not only what Frankie's looking for to finish up her dissertation research in Nevada, but it also describes the bodies that are being left beside the interstate, and also the pioneer gravesite that was found.
Well, Susan, thank you very much. That sounds fascinating.
Thanks, Doug, for the interview. I appreciate it.